Hi everybody, we're back at IBM Think 2025 here in Boston. We have one of the earliest guests on theCUBE and in the CUBE community, one of the most dynamic individuals, Bruno Aziza is here. He is the Group VP for Data, BI, and AI at IBM. Bruno, it's so good to have you back in theCUBE. Really is a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, it's always fun to talk to you.
I mean, man, we did some stuff back in 2010, the big data days, the Hadoop world, the Stratas. We've done a bunch of stuff online. You've got your car talk thing. I mean, it's just really amazing. And you know, people may not know, I mean, you're at IBM now, but you came from Google, you've been at Oracle, you were at SAP, you were at Microsoft, you had startups. I think was it Sisense, Alpine Data when we first met. So you've got startup chops, you got big company chops, and you certainly have data chops. Welcome back. Let me ask you something. As you take all that experience, big companies, small companies, fast companies, slow companies, come to IBM, what are you observing and what are you bringing to IBM?
Well, thanks for having me, and yes, I think it's the 12th time I'm on your show,
yes.
So I've definitely been there since the beginning. And you're right, so I've done 4 startups and then 4 hyperscale companies, Oracle, IBM, and now, and I've been at IBM about 6 months now. And really, I mean, you see here on the show floor, this is where the who's who of doing anything important and critical with data and AI is coming, right? I mean, you heard from PepsiCo, you heard from L'Oréal, you heard from Heineken, and those are organizations that are working with data at scale in production, so we're going to learn a lot about that, whereas the industry is very much about the hype and building agents. We're also learning what really matters is think horizontally, think about the idea of being it more than just agents, and so of course we can go into the details of that, but I mean what's really amazing here is the list of customers is just, I've never seen anything of that scale here.
You know, I want to tap into a couple of things you said. So I had a Heineken on earlier this morning, amazing company, everybody knows Heineken, but what people don't know necessarily is it's Heineken, the brand, is only about 30% of their revenue. They've got all these other brands, like Newcastle, they've got Moretti, you know, and they've largely historically been these kind of autonomous business units, and now they're trying to bring it all together. They are bringing it together with a great data leader. They're scaling it, and one of the things that you'd note is, you used to be able to just advertise on TV, no problem. Now it's all streaming and there's no ads, and so you have to create that personalization. So my question is, what are you hearing on customer stories in terms of scaling AI and making personal interactions easier?
A great story of this is PepsiCo, 320,000 employees. I think they say 1.4 billion smiles every day. And having generative AI work for them at scale, I think gave them a 200% lift in engagement. And while they're doing that, they're also taking care of the things that are really important in production, which is cost and governance. And so I think while everyone's thinking about the opportunity of generating new content and getting better engagement, you also have to think about everything that matters in production. Well, how are you going to manage cost? How are you going to manage governance? L'Oréal is another great example. Came all the way from France to talk to us about 3,000 employees across 60 countries, deploying this integrated financial analytics application. And so I think the opportunity is here is for organizations running business critical workloads to do it at scale and do it also with cost and governance in mind, which unfortunately not many people are talking about, but that's going to be the difference between experimentation and production. I think Arvind said it yesterday, right? The end of experimentation is now. And so now we got to start thinking about, well, how do you go to production at massive scale with great personalization while you have cost control and governance?
I want to tap your tech athlete brain and talk about the stack. Everybody talks about the stack. And I think it's safe to say that AI generally, Gen AI specifically, the power of GPUs has completely changed virtually every layer of the stack, from silicon all the way up through applications. And specifically, one of the observations we make is that the point of control is really shifting from the database up to the governance catalog, which by the way is opening up. You see a lot of open source governance. And so the value is moving even further up the stack to intelligent applications. The advantage, maybe if you're a former company, Oracle, they may be going to maintain control, database, the point of control, but for most customers, even Oracle customers, it's a heterogeneous environment, and so you guys are playing the optionality card in a big way. And there's a couple of pieces of real estate that are really important in this agentic world. There's the the semantic layer, some people call it, we call it the harmonization layer. There's the governance piece, the ability to control those agents, agent control framework we call it. You've got all of that, and your strategy is to be Switzerland. You're not trying to keep everything all on one platform. You're not trying to be everything to everybody, but you actually have all the pieces. And so, help me understand your strategy, and let's get into Agentic, what's real, what's hype, what matters.
Okay, so it's a big question, but I think, first of all, you're right, working back from the customers, what are the choices that customers have today when they want to build an Agentic strategy? They have option one, which is, well, you're going to bet it on one cloud, and you're going to build from that cloud up. And that strategy, I think, works if the majority of your data is in that cloud, but we know, I think we talked about this previously, is it's going to be a multi-cloud world, and it's going to be a hybrid world where you're going to have data across multiple clouds and on-premise. So that strategy alone, I think, doesn't align with the goals of the CIOs and the CEOs. The second option is you can go it all in one application. And while that might work for that very specific business process, it's not going to work because the average employee uses maybe 10, 15 different applications to get their job done. And so the third option, which is really the option that is most aligned with the organizational goals, I think, is to cut across clouds, cut across on-prem information, and cut across applications. That's why we announced 150 pre-built agents that are connected to 80 plus applications here, and we are in a great position as a market leader in the space that understands automation, that understands AI, and has decades of experience with consulting and research to guide the customers to what it means to be in production with these systems. And so this move from a vertical priority to a horizontal priority, I think is really very much aligned with what CIOs want to do today and what they're going to get value from. So they never want to get stuck with one stack or locked with one application, because the reality is you're going to cut across all of those.
I want to get into the agents and the apps.
Yeah.
I want to get into the horizontal versus vertical, but before we do, tell me more about 150 agents and 80 apps. Which app? Are they just IBM apps? Are they partner apps? All of the above?
Yeah,
so tell me, summarize the agent, 150, we don't have time to go through 150, but what are the sort of design principles, the agents, what problems are you guys solving that are high priority, and what apps can I tap into?
Absolutely, so first of all, maybe let's step back. If you look at what Arvind talked about, billion applications being built next few years, a third of them are going to be agents.
At least, right?
So agents or applications are kind of similar. Second stat to really remember, 99% of enterprise data has not been touched by generative AI, right? So we have this huge ecosystem. If you think about an enterprise, they have all this disparate information and disparate deployment models that they've got to tap into. And so what we're doing with a product called Orchestrate is we're here to assist you orchestrate this environment. And there's two ways to think about it. The first way is you want to build for the future. New agents, and the ecosystem there is build an agent. We have an agent with Oracle, an agent with Salesforce. We had Slack on stage with us yesterday in the keynote. And you also have to think about all the role-based work that you've done before, the workflows, right? I think for a lot of people listening to us, it's not just about agents. I call it Agent Plus. You got to build new, and you also have to take advantage of all you've worked before, and that we've been great partners for you to do work with. Like you think about airlines, healthcare institutions, financial services institutions. They're not new to the automation trend. And so we've got to be able to work in both worlds, what you've built and what you're going with into the future.
So if I'm a SaaS vendor, you guys have a lot of SaaS, I have access to my data, the metadata, the operational metadata, the technical metadata, the business metadata, I have access to the process logic, I got it all.
Yes.
So I can build agents inside my little walled garden, and chances are if I do the work to harmonize that data and I have a good governance framework, I'm going to be able to, within that domain, do pretty well. That's sort of the vertical piece.
That's the key word there, right?
Yes.
You're going to be great in that domain. So I'll give you a specific example.
Go ahead, please, yeah.
As an employee of IBM, when I joined about 6 months ago, we had a specific HR application, and we had that front-loaded with an application called HR Web, which is an assistant using Orchestrate that allows me to interface with that application. Well, since I joined, we have changed our HR system, but nothing has changed for me. So why is that? Well, it's because the workflow that I'm working in is not just constrained to this HR application. I might need to do other things across non-HR workflows. And so that's where the beauty of these agents really makes sense, is that they shouldn't be just dependent on just this one silo. They should be able to work with the other pieces of data, the other workflows that enable me to do my job. In the end, it's kind of what I said earlier, is you have to be able to work it back from what the customer and what they want to do. An example is CRM. If you're a salesperson, you can't say that your job is defined by a CRM application. You need productivity work. You need to do presentations, send emails, log transactions, create a proposal for your customers. Well, that's not just in one app. And so that's where the opportunity of the agentic framework is. The unfortunate reality is today, if you go silo by silo, it might not be obvious that these silos work together well, right? If you're a productivity vendor, and if you're a CRM vendor, are you going to integrate properly? Who knows? We are going to make sure that all of that works together in harmony, and that's why the product orchestrate is a great verb. I love it because it's about really orchestration of your workflows inside the enterprise.
I think we set up well the silos, the vertical piece of agentic. Your strategy is to go horizontal.
That's right.
You will have vertical within your own SaaS portfolio,
absolutely,
no
sure.
question, but the real opportunity is horizontal. Okay. How do you integrate across those applications? Through MCP, you're going to have access to the data and the metadata, but probably not the process logic. Where does that come from? How do you affect the process change and enable your agents to be able to create what our vision is that the processes become not static, hard-coded, microservices, some stay. Those that aren't broken we won't fix, but the future, we're going to flip the model on its side and we're going to have building blocks and malleable building blocks to create processes that match the business condition.
Yes.
But how do you get access to that process data, or is it necessary?
So first of all, on process, we had a customer dinner yesterday, 23 incredible CIOs and executives, and we're talking about this idea of process. The first realization here is that, first of all, everyone's job is going to be modified to some extent because of this new technology. And so I think first embracing that change, I think is important for employees to realize. It's not about replacement, it's about the advancement of the job. Just kind of the same way we invented the typewriter or the internet or the cloud, it allowed us to accelerate business productivity and business value. And what we talked about with these customers is that the way to think about this moment is about transformation. So what that means is, the formula for it, if you want, is if process is needed, automate. If process is not needed, eliminate. So I think that's the first step, is that you have the opportunity inside an organization to really audit your processes and question, why do we need to do it this way? Because now we have incredible technology, cloud, networking, processing, agentic, that enables me to accelerate the productivity of my employees. Now in terms of, you ask how we build those agents, there's really three ways to think about it. The first way is that there's existing agents inside your organization. And so they come in with standard frameworks. Data is a great example. In the case of MCP, we say that for these agents to work, they need tools, and data is the best tool. And so connecting to data is important. And so connecting to existing agents is important. The second way is that you can build your own agents, and you can use our framework or the framework of our partners. We have an agent catalog that these agents can be published into. And then the third way is you can use pre-built agents that we've built for you. So what you'll see in Orchestrate, we have pre-built agents by domain, so you can get started and then customize on top of those agents, which I think is where you want to get started because you want to accelerate into better actions faster inside your organization. So if you want to build it in low code, no code, or pro code, you can absolutely do it, and you can use our utilities to do that. You can use pre-built agent, and you can use the fact that IBM is probably one of the most open companies in this domain right now, so you can take advantage of our partners network. I mean, we had Slack on stage, we are doing work with Box, we're doing work with Oracle, so it's really a huge, we had Salesforce. Salesforce actually has a booth on the show floor, and so we're really, probably one of the most open companies you can think of when it comes to operationalizing these agents in production at scale. I think that's really the key word. Lots of excitement, but we're now entering in the end of experimentation, so the questions you're going to ask yourself when you go to production are going to be way different, and so that's what we see with our customers.
So this is I want to put a finer point on this, because last fall, we were sitting in Ask Me Anything with Arvind, and one of the analysts, it might have even been me, asked about his partnership philosophy, and he said, you can look at somebody who's doing really well, and you can say, wow, I want to compete with that, I want a piece of that. Or you can say, you know what, I do something really well that they don't do, and I can partner with them, so it's not a zero-sum game. And he said, that's a different philosophy under Arvind, than what IBM, sort of maybe the culture used to be. The reason I bring that up is because you talk about your partnerships. You mentioned Salesforce, you mentioned Oracle, right, which is kind of interesting, and many, many others. Benioff, I don't know if you were in the AMA this year with Arvind, and you heard my question to him, and Benioff didn't answer, but Arvind, I thought his answer was beautiful, and I want to sort of share it with the audience. Mark Benioff wrote a piece in the Wall Street Journal, said, I'm going to be the last generation of executives to manage only humans. The future is going to be humans and agents. So I asked Mark, well, what does that mean? I mean, how are you going to manage differently, and how have you managed differently? What have you learned? And he was awesome, but he gave me kind of an agent-forced canned answer. The rest of the interview was fantastic. But anyway, I asked Arvind about that, and I loved his answer. He said, look, this is not going to be a command and control from me. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing, my job is to sort of decentralize those agents, give people closest to the customer the authority to manage those agents and enable them to be more productive. That's going to be the difference. They are going to manage those. It's not going to be a command and control. I really liked that answer because I grew up in a decentralized organization and love it. What do you think about that? Do you have anything to add to that? Is that sort of a reasonable vision?
I think he's very much on point on this is a moment in time where you could truly harness the innovation of your employees, because it's never been easier to build an agent. I mean, I don't know if you've tried Orchestrate, you should, but you can build an agent in less than 5 minutes.
That's what I hear. I hear anybody can do, who's not a Python programmer, can actually do this.
And you don't have to be a developer. You can really just point click and then build your own or customize on top. So I think there's certainly going to be a gigantic amount of agents being built on our platform, but also across the ecosystem. The thing I would kind of share with the audience and what I've learned from, since I joined 6 months ago, I have a global team, so I'm able to see what these customers are doing. I think I've talked to maybe close to 200 customers at this point, and what I'm noticing is that when you go to production, a few things are key. One is cost arbitration. You really need to harness, are you using the technology to the best cost performance advantage you have, and that's why we have products that we talked about here on Agent Ops and AI Gateway that allow you to kind of have an arbitration of where are you sending those queries and how should you think about the cost performance advantages and disadvantages. So I think the first one. Second is we have a product called .gov, and it's a great end-to-end multi-cloud and hybrid governance product, which is very successful because as you go to production, you're going to want to know lineage. You're going to want to be able to turn on and turn off these applications, right? I mean, if you think about what an agent is, it's a really powerful application that a business user can build and harnesses a lot of these sub-layer applications that you already have built inside your organization, so you want to govern that. You don't want to all of a sudden have this flurry of agents that are out of control, using the wrong data, driving the wrong workflows, and driving consumption into your platform that is not cost effective. So while there's excitement, we now need to think about a true agentic strategy which includes cost and governance. So I think we're not talking about this as much because it's not sexy, but I guarantee you the next 6 months, probably the next 5 years in fact, are going to be about that. And we are, I think, I always joke that the market's coming at us because we're in a great position to help these customers really succeed with that.
Was that Project Ripasso, or is that something different?
That's another one. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about that, because we did announce the preview of What's the Next BI, which is our new analytics agent. And here again, we took a different approach to it, right? Most analytics efforts from BI vendors are assistants. They are basically in a silo. And what we looked at when we analyzed what our customers were doing, the customer that was the most memorable to me is they had 20,000 dashboards. And I asked them, okay, what about the usability of these dashboards? What do you know? And they said 18,000 of them, 20,000 dashboards, 18,000 of them are used by less than 8 people. This is a multinational. And so when we looked at this repeated pattern, we thought, what is an assistant going to do? It's going to give me faster answer on dashboards that nobody looks at. And you can question why they don't look at it, maybe they don't trust the data. So our approach was, we're going to build an analytics agent that sits on top of your data estate and looks at how trusted the data, how governed the data is. So when you ask questions to that data, right, the natural language interface is not a new thing. I mean, companies have been in this space for a long time, but the key here is the data itself. And so you got to start from the data up. Like kind of what we talked about with the customers, you can build a lot of agents, but you got to start from, what is the job that my customer is trying to do? Nobody's out there trying to build more dashboards or train more business analysts so they can train more dashboards everybody ignores. Everybody wants business answers they can trust so they can do their job. And so Watson X BI is really designed to do that. And we had one session actually the other day, and we had to book another one because we couldn't get everybody in. So I think we're really hitting a nerve here.
That's interesting. You talk about 18,000 dashboards that are used by very few people. If you want to understand value in technology, just look at usage. I mean, it's really simple math. You take revenue per employee, identify how much of the IT apps are actually being used, do the simple math times revenue per employee. If there's only 8 using them, guess what? There's not a lot of value being generated by that usage. So, I would suggest you either kill it or consolidate it. That's kind of the...
Well, at least ask why is it, right? Why is it that this is happening? Who are these users? What are the patterns? And so, we're in a great position to do that because we have really a good transversal hybrid view of the industry. We have obviously a ton of experience in this space. I mean, I think we invented SQL, and the first relational database was at IBM. And so in terms of, when you think about this unstructured data powering these agents. So I think about it, right? I think the reason for why unstructured data is really exciting to a lot of people now is because agents are the killer app for unstructured data, right? We're now realizing that you need to really have a strategy across structured and unstructured data to build those agents. And so it's a great time to be at IBM. If you want to join, you should reach out to me. And in general, it just maps with, I think, the challenges for the next 10 years in this space.
You've said several times that we're moving beyond, and we've heard Arvind say this, is kind of a big theme of Think 2025, is moving beyond experimentation to actual scale. And so a lot of fanfare about Agentic and AI, but people still complain about being in POC purgatory. So what is the single architectural unlock that's going to happen to get us on that S-curve, that when we're here in 2026, we're going to say, see, it happened.
That's right. So I think the first mistake to avoid is this is not just about technology. You're going to hear a lot of hype from a lot of vendors. They're going to tell you if you just press this button, everything happens. This is why I like our position, is because first we have decades of experience, so we've seen what good looks like. We also use our own technology. I mean, I think you might have heard Arvind talk about over $3 billion saved by using this technology. So we have personal, real experience. We have a great consulting practice that can help you with what makes you different as an organization, right? I mean, the reason for why these pre-built agents work is because it's a starting point. But what we really need to look at is, what is the know-how that makes your company different? And it's going to be your business practices, it's going to be your people, and your data. And so I would start with that. I would say, first, you're going to have 162 use cases. Everybody wants to use those agents, so order them based on value. Helene from L'Oréal was kind of telling us today how she thinks about the stack rank of these use cases. So one is have a really good strategy for how you stack rank the ideas. Second is, go back to the principle we talked about. If process is needed, automate. If process is not needed, eliminate. You really need to think about it that way. And then third, partner with a company that is truly open. Right, I think you got to be careful walking down the siloed stack, because it might look great and romantic for the first few steps, and then you get hit with cost, governance questions, origination of the data, attribution of what content has been created. If you don't build that from day one, it's going to be really expensive later on. And so that's the 3 steps I would take are really those, is really audit, take advantage of your know-how, and pick the right partner that has research, consulting, and software available to you to get there.
It's going to be interesting, Bruno, to see how this unfolds. You've got a lot of experience at a lot of big companies. One in particular, one of the hyperscalers in particular. My feeling is those hyperscalers, they've got their estate. They're going to do just fine, and they're going to bring people in, and that's their strategy. Very few companies, I'm trying to think of any one besides IBM, has that really comprehensive strategy to go horizontal. There are plenty of people going horizontal, but not with the resources and assets that you guys have. So it's a pretty bold vision, but one that you're executing on. And Arvind, I think, has really done a good job of getting the company to say, okay, this is where we're going. It's a huge market there. There's a lot of love for you in the CUBE community, man. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, and call me back anytime.
All right, great. And thank you for watching. This is Dave Vellante. We'll be right back right at this short break. theCUBE at IBM Think 2025 from Boston.